conspiracy theories flying all over about the most recent coronavirus and how it might have been released in Wuhan, China, made us want to take a look at the history of biological warfare. Biological weapons in general is referring to bacteria, viruses, fungi, or toxins found in nature. Biological warfare is definitely not new to the world. As early as 1500 BC suggests that some in Europe may have been releasing ergot, a parasitic fungus, to enemies through arrows. However, more documented, in 550 BC, the Persians would dip their arrows into either decomposing bodies or a mixture of blood and feces. The Greeks then also did this. By 300 BC, for 2 to 3 centuries, the Romans would place dead animals or humans in wells to poison water sources. They're also documented as dipping their swords in feces and dead bodies. During the bubonic plague throughout Europe, they would hurl dead corpses and feces at enemies and over castle walls, as well as in the water sources and wells. This was done by Europeans as well as Mongolians in the east. This practice of warfare, along with heavily open trading routes, increased the rate of death during the plague to 25 million. This continued throughout the 1700s. The last documented use of the bubonic plague was in Russia, as they would continue to fling infected corpses with catapults. By the later half of the 1700s, the British used smallpox-infected blankets in North America on the Native Americans. This set a course of events throughout trade and warfare that killed 500,000 Indians in only a few short years. In the 1780s and 90s, the British were believed to have spread smallpox throughout the Aborigine Australians. This is based on suggestions recently uncovered. The 1900s saw advances in microbiological warfare. During World War I, anthrax, a deadly bacteria, was released onto Russians in Finland. Glanders was released to their horses through infected deer. During World War I, the Germans also released anthrax and glander to enemy livestock. The French, in return, unleashed glanders to the German horses. By World War II, Japan was known to drop jars filled with fleas infected with the bubonic plague in China, killing 500,000 Chinese citizens. After the war, it was discovered that Japan had planned on a similar attack on California. During the Cold War, extensive research took place on biological warfare. Russia, the British, and the U.S. advanced biological weaponry. The U.S. weaponized an advanced form of anthrax known as E61N. Britons weaponized tularemia, a plague, and ran tests on how to deploy it. Meanwhile, the Russians were weaponizing ricin. In 1969, along came the Warsaw Pact, where the United Nations banned biological weapons and classified it as a strict war crime. As early as 2001, the United States saw a short spike in anthrax terror attacks following the 9/11 attack. And here we are now seeing the Chinese put spins on the coronavirus release. So there you go. There's our take on the history of biological weapons. Thank you for watching this episode of The History of Weapons.